I told Jaime, I said, we can do a good trade. We can trade your raisins for some water. They have raisins and avocados. We have water. So, but anyways, so what we're going to do is we're going to have a couple breakouts here. We're going to have one with one of our speakers, Jim Sherman. He's going to be doing a presentation on audio and how to collect audio data in the field. A lot of people call us, text us, message us, email us about, hey, I'm hearing sounds on my property. A typical thing that we like to do is give them advice on, hey, this is what you can buy. Like I called Jim. Jim, what kind of tape recorder digital recordings do you recommend? He sent me a couple recommendations. You know what? He has a lot of experience doing it, so I did did what he suggested. So Jim is very knowledgeable in this. So is Patrick. So if you have any questions, you can field them to Patrick. And, things like that. So let's keep quiet and let's give Jim, I figure what do you got, 15, 20 minutes?
15 minutes, that's cool.
About 15 minutes, and then we're going to have another presentation. Same place, same time, etc. So let's hear it for Jim Sherman.
Pass this around. This is fun. This is a parabolic mic. And what's the greatest thing about this thing is it cost me $15 on eBay. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me! And whenever a package comes to my front door, I have to get to it first, and then I'm like, what was there? Nothing, because I know, but it's like it's better than like a meth addiction, I guess. But the thing is, that thing was cheap, and so I knew I wasn't going to have to necessarily worry if it didn't work. But I was incredibly surprised at how well it did work. And all it does is it just you point it at something, you pull a trigger, and it just amplifies whatever you're pointing at. And what's neat about it is you can use it in the field. You sit down, you get yourself out there in the middle of nowhere. If you're in the field, it's great because you can sit and do this. If you're in the woods, it still works great. The only problem is things like a mouse sounds like a rhinoceros because you're like, there's a rhino coming. But it's great because you can hear things, and if you think there's something over there, you hit it with the parabolic, and it's passive. It's not shooting anything out there or anything like that. There's nothing's going to know that you're doing it unless something comes from behind you because you can't hear that. But it's really a cool toy that actually becomes like a tool. And it's a fun thing to have out in the field, and it's incredibly inexpensive. The other thing that I highly recommend is breaking things. This is my favorite recorder. This is just a Sony. This is the IC model. You can get this at Staples for like, well, it depends, somewhere like $45. And it's really cheap, and it'll run for many, many hours. They'll go, I forget how long this one goes, like 9 or 11 hours, I forget. Batteries go for a long time, and plus the cool thing is they're just AAA batteries, which is super sweet. And what I do with it is I attach a decent set of, a decent microphone on it, and this, I put this, oh here's, turn it on, record, turn it on, yeah, turn it on first, turn it on, record, and then there's a neat little button on here called hold. Do that, because if you don't, it's going to turn off in your backpack. I throw this in my backpack, I hook this out, and I'll sit like this, and you know, when this thing turns off, you're guaranteed to have activity. So if you want to have activity, be, oh, my batteries are strangely dead, and then something's going to happen. But that kind of stuff has happened to me before. I also recommend the minute that you turn your car off, have your recorder going. Just have it going. In fact, before I even get to my location, I've got this thing on, and then I roll down my window, turn off the car, and sit there and feel like a ninja. I'm like, oh yeah, because I'm ready. Because there have been numerous occasions when I've gotten out of my car, and you hear a cool knock, and you're like, yes. Also, what I suggest, I carry like 3 of these whenever I'm in the field. When I leave, I put one on the top of the car. I've got usually 1 or 2 with me. And the one on the top of the car sometimes catches interesting things. I recommend when you leave, pulling it off the top of your car, because I've not done that before. But one time, oh, that was awesome. One I drove off, and I'm like, 1, 2.
Just keep passing it.
I stopped. I didn't reverse. I stopped. I went up, and I had to go back, and it was a ways back, and I picked it back up, and later, no kidding, I listened to it, and you could hear me driving off like an idiot. But then I heard 2 knocks, and they're like, the idiot's gone. And you know what I did? I told myself, I planned that. That's how I do it. All right, but I seriously suggest doing that, and these things are so cheap that it doesn't matter if you lose one. And then what you do is you can plug it directly into your computer. Just boop, put it right in, and I use a program that's free, which is my favorite word, and it's, I'm a highly paid squatcher. No, I'm a highly paid teacher. All right. That got the laugh too. Sorry about that. The thing is, I use a free site called Audacity, and it's beautiful. And once you get used to it, you can do all sorts of fun things. Now, I don't manipulate the sounds a lot. I cut it mostly, and I'll amp things. But I don't like to play around with getting rid of the crickets and stuff like that, just because I think it takes away from some of the authenticity. But I honestly suggest having numerous recorders like this. Also, if you want to, this thing's kind of fun. My good friend Caroline gave me this, and this is just a percussion block. But the neat thing about it is you can stick it in your backpack, and then you just do, and it's relatively loud. And you don't have to go crazy with it or anything like that. And it carries. In fact, this just produced like 3 BFRO reports just moments ago.
Just came in.
It's in here. The thing that I like, that's a tick. No, it's a not a fan. All right. So here's the thing. It's probably going, oh really?
Everybody.
I love to walk in the field carrying this. This one just happens to be an ash handle that I've had for a long time. The reason I like this is because you can hit trees with it if you want to. You can dissuade bears, which I don't want to. You push poison ivy out of the way into your friends. Anything you want to do. If I'm there with Ron and a bear comes, this is taking out Ron's knee.
No, it won't.
The force is strong with this one. But the other funny thing about this is it makes me feel a little bit more manly walking through the woods having something like this, because this is all I got. I carry 17 knives, I'm not going to lie. It's like, oh yeah? But, if I ever fall, I'm in such trouble. But this thing is, I feel a little bit stronger in the woods. But you can tree knock with this, and I've had reactions, I've had responses to tree knocks, and it's kind of a cool thing. And so you never know what's going to happen, and it's just kind of fun to do. Other things that you can do, if you're interested, is you can call blast vocals. And what's neat about that, and hopefully this stayed up, I can put this in the middle of the field, and I've done that before. And sometimes what I'll do is I will take vocals from an area. Like if I'm in Isabella County, I can get vocals from Isabella. If I'm in Mecosta, I can get local things from Mecosta, because I get vocals from all over the place. And sometimes you can actually get a response if you play something. And sometimes it's a response from something out in the woods. Sometimes it's a response from the people that you're standing with, which is equally fun. Particularly if you show this one in Wisconsin. I was out with a group of about 25 people, and I started with this one at middle of the night. Middle of the night. Hopefully it'll play. This is not mine. This is a Sierra sound. That's not mine. That's interesting. And like I said, that was not mine. And then there's some other ones. Like this one, I don't play in the field anymore because I did once. I won't again. like that for a while. And the reason I don't do that again is because, okay, I'll tell you the story. The reason that I don't do that anymore is because it was near Mayo in Michigan. We played that in base camp, and we went for a walk. And I went out with Caroline, and we took a whole bunch of bait with kids with us. And it is what it is. And we're walking like this, and one of the guys in the back gets on the radio, and he's just like, "Rock just came at us." I'm like, "Sure, a rock just came at you." And so whatever. And so we're walking, and then I start hearing something to my right, something kind of paralleling, and I'm like, "No problem. I'm sure it's one of the kids." I'm looking, I'm counting. They're all here, and I knew I was hearing it, and I'm like, "Man, I don't know what this is." And finally, I mean, I told Caroline about it. I was getting a little bit freaked out. And then I picked up this really weird smell. All right? But this is a smell that no one else has ever described before. And it was cucumbers. I smelled cucumbers. And I'm like, okay, this isn't in any books anywhere. Cucumbers? You know, it's like a vegan squash or something. And so, we had some howls, all sorts of weird stuff was happening, but came back to, that is a huge spider right there, I'm just letting you know. Stickers. Yeah. The thing is, we came back to camp, and our latrine had been messed with. Like something had been digging through the latrine. And I'm like, that's really strange. And the last thing that had been dumped in the latrine was this huge vat of cucumber salad. So something had gone into the cucumber salad vat of yuckiness and then potentially followed us. And I'm just like, okay, I don't want to know what it was, but that was weird. So I don't want to play that vocal anymore because it attracts cucumber squash or something.
Like when they get frightened.
Interesting stuff. Some of the other things that you can do if you're so inclined
when you want to do that again,
is you get yourself a cheap plastic ammo box. Don't get the real metal ones. Save those for your ammo. But you can take a cheap one like this, and all you got to do is poke a little hole in the front of it there. And I stuck one of my mics out here, and on the inside, I have a recorder. All right, like that. And normally I have it all padded and stuff like that. You do this. And then you break your microphone. Then what you do is was that on film?
Looks like another package from FedEx is going to show up on.
Sweetie, I've got to upgrade. It's absolutely important.
All right. I did that because I wanted you to see the perfectly milled hole right there. But what's cool about it is that you can just set that out there and it can rain all over it and it doesn't matter. And you can walk out in the field like this carrying it, and you can put your lunch in it too, I guess. Or ammo. But this is a great way to protect everything that you have. Just so you know, I can't even see this computer, so something's happened to the screen, but I didn't want to do that. Let me show you a couple of other things that I have that you might find interesting that I have collected over the years, and things that I have shown or played during BFRO expeditions and things like that. I apologize that I couldn't get to the other stuff, but that's what happens when you leave your computer on too long. FedEx is going to visit apparently again. My poor wife. Just take just a second. Because every once in a while, this is the one that I showed at the beginning, and the reason that I put this series of vocals together is because what it did is it showed a whole bunch of different kinds of sounds, all sorts of different things that you can eventually come across. And I'll see if I can get this to come up. That's very similar to the Ohio howl, and I'll tell you something funny about that one. I played that one. I was quite literally camping next to you may know a guy named Matt Moneymaker, and we were camped together, and I showed him that, and he called me an interesting word, and I'm like, oh, thank you. And the reason he did that is he says that sounds better than mine. And I'm just like, yes, it does. And you're welcome. But what was cool about it was when I offered to take a show, you know, I'll take over if you want. He said no. But, try, that'd be cool. But so it'll take just a second. There we are. Cool. All right. This will be a little bit better for us. I apologize for the wait. There we are. All right. Every once in a while, you come up with some things that are kind of interesting, and this one's my favorite, right here. And part of this, you heard a little bit of this in the presentation yesterday, but for some reason, this one really excites me when I hear it. This is my favorite one. I hope you will. There we go. Now the reason I like that one so much is because it's a sound that it's just rare. And I've had people tell me that it's a loon, I've had people tell me that it's all sorts of things, but anytime I get a vocal, I like to send it to well, quite literally to people that are linguists and people who are, I have an Air Force former crypto linguist person. I don't even know if that's his title, I just made it up for him. But and people that know what the heck they're talking about, and it's just kind of cool to have them look at it, put it on a spectrogram, and say, you know what, here's where a coyote is, and here's where that is. Here's where that is, and this is where people are. And it's just kind of a cool thing. And then it reminds me, yeah, there is a reason that I'm out there doing the silly stuff that I'm doing, because every once in a while you do get something that's kind of neat. And other things that are hard to get a hold of are any times that you can come up with knocks. And this should have a good knock. That was that right there. Now what I did do with that one is I eliminated some of the talking in the middle, because there was me talking, being angry that I didn't have my recorder on. And I was mad at myself for being mad at myself and talking over a vocal. And then that kind of stuff happens. But every once in a while you get just like this one's just a little one. But when you hear something like that in the woods, you're like, was that a coyote? Was that, you know, you're not sure exactly what it is. And what you need to do is you need to make sure that, number one, it's not another person out there, or it's like another BFRO person out there. It's like, hey, I was in your area last night. It's like, oh, fantastic. But also, you want to make sure that you know the animals that live in your area, and to see if it's something that's supposed to be there. Like the first time I heard a pine marten, I'm like, what is that spawn of Satan? I'm just like, I don't know. They're not from where I'm from. But that's kind of an interesting thing to have happen. And then every once in a while you'll come up with something like this, which is just kind of neat. And in one spot in right around central Michigan, we get a lot of it's either a long kind of a howl, or it's three short ones. The knocking is either one single really loud one, or there'll be three. But then there's like light tapping, and in the same area, I picked up a couple rock clacks, which are kind of neat. But also things get thrown against barns and fences, which is really strange to hear. And then I have a recording, it doesn't sound like much, but I have a recording of something walking up to this big old blue barrel that was on the farm. And the ladies there used to put food on it every night. Every single night. And I told them, I said, you know, you may want to you may want to stop doing that because whatever's out there is going to say, this is food, I'm going to expect it, and oh, there's a goat right there. You know, so I'm like, you know, you may want to be a little bit chill about that. And so, no kidding, the first, they were recording for me, the first night that they didn't put food, I get an interesting call. It's like, Jim, you may want to listen. I sent it to you. I'm like, okay, cool. And what you hear is something walk up. It's bipedal. It sounds like a person, to be completely honest, walking onto their property. And then there's a pause. And then something hits the barrel really hard. And it's the top of the barrel. The barrel stayed where it was, but hits it really hard and then walks away. And then I said, maybe we'll wean them off a bit. Here, have some carrots. It's going to be awesome. But I'll tell you, some of those things, most of what you hear it's not scary. It's really cool to hear when they're far away. And it's like, this is the most beautiful thing in the world. It's all God's creation. It's right there. And then there's a little bit of a different feeling. And I felt vocals that hit, and I feel like they're striking you. And you're like, you don't want me here, do you? You know, and it's an interesting thing. But I just want to end by saying, go out. If you get a chance to go out and play in the woods, please do. You're gonna hear cool things no matter what. There's a darn good chance you're not gonna hear a sasquatch. You know, there really is. But you may hear a whippoorwill, which is really awesome. You're gonna hear all sorts of cool stuff. Just get out there, sit out there, be quiet. Bring your friends out there. More importantly, bring your kids out there. Get your kids out in the woods. I know I'm speaking to the choir here because you guys already do it. But if you can get your kids out and they can be out and have fun and treat the woods and everything out there with respect, we're all going to win in the long run. And so please get out, have fun, send me any vocals that you have. I love this stuff. Thanks guys, thanks for listening.